The 2021 draft class has played through their rookie year, and it is that time of year where we go through each and every one of the previous first round picks. These videos are fun to do because you usually get every team at least once and touch on how their season went, but unfortunately for Seahawks fans whose pick was traded to the Jets, they won't have a first round pick to go over from last year. But we are grading picks 32 through 17 in today's video after 1 year, and within a couple of days the grades on 16 through 1 will be released as well. The grading will be tougher than you think because I want to reserve the true A pluses for players like, well, two in particular that will be in picks 16 through 1, Micah and Jamar, for example. For any other rookie, it is hard to stand out, though some definitely did in 2021, so without further ado, let's begin. And we are starting today's video with Joe Tryon, the edge rusher Tampa selected with the 32nd pick in the draft last year. Tryon's raw numbers of 29 tackles and 4 sacks do not look all that impressive, but Bucs fans know he showed a lot of promise and will probably be a good starter moving forward. I don't think he'd last to pick 15, let alone 32 in a redraft, and a year later Tryon gets a B+. Prior to that was the Ravens, who had this pick from the trade with the Chiefs and Orlando Brown, and the Ravens needed an edge rusher in the worst way. They hit what looks like a home run in Odafe Oweh, who, like Tryon, was unfortunately outshined by Micah Parsons in what were both productive rookie seasons. A year later, Odafe Oweh gets an A-. Numero 30 was Greg Rousseau, as there was quite a run on pass rushers at the end of the first round, and unlike other draft classes, I'm not exaggerating when I think each Tryon, Oweh, and Rousseau have the potential to play for their franchises for a long time. Rousseau had 5 sacks and 10 quarterback hits in playing just 49% of the Bills' defensive snaps. It would have been nice for him to play a little more, granted he did take his final year at Miami off and was considered a huge risk, huge reward player, and he is leaning towards the reward a year later, an A- grade for Rousseau. 29 was corner Eric Stokes for the Packers, and not surprisingly, a rookie corner on the same team as All-Pro Jair Alexander was targeted a lot. Stokes gradually improved throughout the year and will need to develop ball skills in year number 2. When he does, Jair and Stokes will be a lethal 1-2 combo. There's a lot of promise here, and a year later Stokes gets an A-. 28 was Payton Turner of the Saints, who played in 5 games in his rookie season. He had 12 tackles, and granted he did have an impressive sack against the Panthers. He has the tools to become an impressive player, but we will have to wait until 2022 to see if those tools can be unleashed. Remember, Cam Jordan had a very slow start to his career in 2011 as well, and a year later it's an incomplete grade for Turner. Now heading back to Charm City and my home state to discuss Rashod Bateman, the receiver from the University of Minnesota. Bateman had a decent rookie season when you consider everything that took place, as he played in 12 games and had over 500 yards receiving. His starting quarterback in former MVP Lamar Jackson, sometimes people forget that, missed some time down the stretch, which certainly contributed to Bateman not being as productive as he potentially could have been. And when you factor that in a year later, we give Bateman a B-. From one AFC North team to another to discuss Browns corner Greg Newsome. Newsome, like Packers corner Eric Stokes, was targeted a considerable amount as a rookie because of having Pro Bowl corner Denzel Ward on the opposite side, and Newsome came through more often than not. The Browns absolutely nailed their first 2 draft picks in Newsome and JOK, and they were bright spots in a not-so-bright year for Cleveland. A year later, Newsome gets an A. And perhaps the shortest length of time we will discuss a player is the Jags' second first-round pick. Admittedly, I was never a fan of the selection of Travis Etienne because of already having James Robinson, and I am aware they wanted to use Etienne as an offensive weapon, and that was with Urban as the head coach. Now, I really do hope Etienne proves me wrong and makes me look like an idiot for doubting this selection, and that goes for any draft pick I don't like, by the way, but a year later, Etienne's grade is incomplete. The picks were back-to-back running backs, and Najee Harris was the Steelers' first-round selection. Harris was not in a great situation due to the offensive line and with a quarterback that was as far from mobile as it could get. And when you combine those, it makes it a lot more difficult for a running back to make plays. Harris had 8 games under 45 yards rushing last year, and I would like to see that improve in 2022, as aside from the 188-yard game outlier against the Browns, he averaged just 3.6 yards per carry. Again, situation and context matters, and the players around him, like the offensive line, need to perform better to maximize what he can do, and because of that being out of Najee's control, a year later his individual performance gets an A. 23 was tackle Christian Darrisaw to the Minnesota Vikings, who did not start for the early part of the year. He had ups and downs, as there were times he looked like a legitimate franchise left tackle, and other times, well, a rookie. Overall, I do think the good outshined the bad, and a year later, Darrisaw gets a B+. 22 was Caleb Farley, a talented corner prospect from Virginia Tech. Farley was a high-risk, high-reward player because of injury concerns, and the Titans have done this before and it's worked out, like Jeffrey Simmons. Farley's injury concerns were with his back, though, not his ACL, which he tore early in the 2021 season. The hope is he comes back the way Simmons has over the past few years, because that would eventually make this an A grade if he can do that. For now, though, it is unfortunately incomplete. And from one AFC South team, we go to another in Colts pass rusher Kwity Paye. Kwity on the stat sheet was not very impressive. Not bad, but not wow, eye-popping either, right? However, he finished third in total pressures generated among rookie edge rushers with 39. He also made the Pro Football Writers of America's first team, for rookies that is. I truly believe this is the type of player we will see break out in a big way in 2022. And sacks are not the end-all be-all stat, and Kwity is the perfect example of that. He will be a breakout player in 2022, and by the way, when I do breakout player videos or players that may have big seasons in late August, early September area, Kwity will most definitely be in one of those videos. So if you're watching this now and potentially remember this in September, well, I appreciate that, so comment if you do, but a year later, he gets a B+, with the thought it will eventually become at least an A. 20 was the fourth receiver, which was Kadarius Toney to the Giants. And what needs to be said is context when discussing the 2021 receiver draft class. Who's going to have more success? Well, granted, Jamar is better, I'm not denying that, but a player who had chemistry already with a Pro Bowl quarterback, or a player in Daniel Jones who isn't Joe Burrow. Naturally, Toney's numbers will not look good compared to some of his peers in year one, and even Jalen Waddle reconnecting with Tua, right? So that has to be a factor in the grade, but Toney had one game of 189 yards, which is impressive, obviously, but aside from that, had 29 catches for 231 yards in the other 9 games. A year later, Kadarius gets a C. Now, 19 was Jamin Davis to the Washington football team, and this is a guy, now here's a guy, who had 76 tackles in his rookie season, and that looks half decent on the stat sheet. However, football team fans are not the biggest fan of him because of his indecisiveness and his inability at times to shoot the correct gaps and make big plays. They also see a division rival's rookie who they very easily could have traded up to get, and most definitely have a sense of jealousy for how their rookie linebacker played versus how Dallas's did. Jamin Davis a year later gets a C+. 18 was Jaelan Phillips, a pass rusher for the Miami Dolphins, who was also one of my favorite prospects in the draft process. Phillips had a slow start to the 2021 season, but during their final stretch of the year, in which the team caught fire and finished 7-1, Phillips had a 7-sack in 9-game span and closed his rookie season on a very high note. Like Kwity, I fully expect him to be a breakout candidate in 2022, and with a 8.5-sack, 16 quarterback hit year in Season 1, you could argue he already has broken out. With the full season under his belt and an already productive year, anything shy of 12 sacks in 2022, assuming he stays healthy of course, would be disappointing. An A grade for Phillips. Alex Leatherwood was the Raiders' pick at 17, and we all know this was a reach, as there was always a controversy of who had the final say between Gruden and Mayock. Leatherwood was overdrafted and eventually went from tackle to guard, and like all rookie linemen, really maybe aside from Quentin Nelson, struggled. Leatherwood ranked in the top 5 in both penalties called and sacks given up, with 14 penalties and 8 sacks, and finished as the 3rd worst guard graded by PFF. The hope for now for Leatherwood is, well, it's hard to get worse than how he played, as so he can really only go up. A D- grade for Leatherwood in year 1. Now, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, now is the time I ask you to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as it would mean the world. There will be a video out on picks 16 to 1, and until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.